Hello and welcome again to my knife channel. What I wanted to go over today was the last time I showed a Lansky system and sharpening a knife. It was the reprofiling method, and what that is basically you look at the angle you've got on the blade, and you see some wonky parts, you know, where it's real thin and then thick, you know, and it's just not even. And you basically reprofile it. So you start off with whatever angle you want to set, and you just take off metal until it's all consistent and even on both sides. That takes a while. Depending on the length of the blade and the type of steel and everything, it can take a while. Usually it takes me about 30-45 minutes, you know, just from changing the stones out and everything else. A much quicker method is this one. It took me a while to look through my collection and find a knife that I haven't sharpened, because one of the first things I do, besides oogling over it and looking at it and going ooh ah and liking the feel of it, is I test the blade. And one of the ways I test it is on paper. Like I said, I'll sit there and I'll start a cut and I'll push all the way through. What I'm looking for is any raggedness like that. That occurred like in the middle of the blade. You look at the blade itself, and sometimes you can see on the edge. Let me see if I can zoom this guy in, because this blade has got a couple of issues that are going to be kind of difficult to see. Now I got to get the guy to focus. There you go. Alright, you see on the very tip here, we've got a bit of edge rollover. Now, you might be able to strop that out and everything. Sometimes you'll find little nicks in the blade and stuff like that. It usually comes with a really, like a coarse grind edge, because it was done on basically like a grinding wheel or a flat or something like that, a grinding belt. But it leaves those marks in there. And they're usually not too bad, and in most cases... and in some cases it can act kind of like a small serrated type of blade, and that it'll help, you know, jump and cut through. I usually like them to be super sharp, you know. So this one here, I also, after doing that, I try to test it, and if it's not cutting hair right away and stuff, then it's not as sharp as I'd like it to be, especially for a toothpick. You want it to be really sharp. So the fast way to do this is you get one of these Lansky systems, and like I said, I need to add a piece of leather on the back. I'll do that later on as a modification, but right now I've got it like set like this. It comes with two stones, coarse and fine, and these are really simple. All you do is you make sure that you keep your blade straight like this. You go up to the edge of the, you know, like the hilt, right up here on the blade. You keep it straight, and you just push. You just pull your knife down. You don't have to push real hard against this, and you don't have to push down real hard. And you do it on one side, and then you do the same thing on the other side. And what this is doing, as long as you keep your wrist straight and the angle straight, you're going to get 20 degrees shaved off each side. It usually doesn't take a lot, especially like with 448. You can do it like 10, 15 times on each side. Like I said, you don't have to go real hard. You want to make sure that you're going all the way down. You try to get the tip. This is why I selected this one too, because it has a curved tip on it and everything. And then what I do, I'm just kind of like looking at it, and I'm seeing that the grinds, it's basically cutting along exactly where I need to. The tip is not getting cut as much. I mean, it's not getting ground as much. And that's because you have a tendency when you're pulling this to kind of like slip it off. So what I'm going to do is concentrate a little bit more on the tip up here. I'm just going to start with this end of the blade and just do like this a little bit. I'm not really counting the number of strokes that I'm doing or anything else. I'm just trying to this work on this edge just a little bit, just on one side. Now you can do it whatever way you want. Like I said, that seems to be getting out a little bit more. Now just to kind of equal it out, I'm going to do this side the same way. With a long thin blade like this, I tend to support it with my finger up here also, just to give it a little bit of extra support. Yeah, this tip is going to be really difficult to work on because it's so small, but we're not going to worry as much about the tip. Like I said, this is a quick method. And so now I'm just going to continue with this. I'm going to go down right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. I look at it. I've run my finger on this. Now, this is going to seem like it's a really long method because it's taken me a while to, you know, explain all this while I'm doing it. But in reality, it's usually a pretty quick method. When you've got to explain something, it takes a while. All right, I've got a burr on that's gone on this side, but occurs on this side. So what that means is I need to hit this side just a little bit more towards the top there. And what I'm trying to do is just roll the burr from one side to the other, just to make sure it's consistent. Like I said, this is a little bit more detailed than it usually doesn't go quite this long, but if you compare it to reprofiling a blade and changing all your stones out and everything else, this is a much quicker method. Alright, now these are fine ceramic stones. You do the same thing. You just go down, straight down. Like I said, this tip is a little bit harder to get, and it's the most difficult part. If you've got these will also work on like a recurve blade also, because they're round like that. They usually don't work as well with serrations, but a serrated edge, you usually just take a stone and run it through there. Alright, so the burr is basically on this side of the knife, but not 100% consistently. So I'm going to run it over here just to get it consistent. Alright, so let's go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if this is all you had, you can get an acceptable edge with it. I mean, it'll cut, and it's doing pretty good, but you see how it gets kind of toothy? And sometimes this is where you've got to fold in a paper or something else. But anyways, the main thing that's going to help you, once again, is to strop. Just go back through here and strop it a few times. I'm just trying to get full contact. See how that kind of folded on me? Full contact on the paddle here. Yeah, depending on the lock on your knife, it will come back on you a little bit if you're pushing too hard on it or anything like that. But you're really just stropping it like that. Now we get over here and we get a good edge. See, that's much better, much better. So really, just to completely smooth it up, I'll just continue to do this just a few more times. What it's doing is basically knocking off all those sharp, toothy edges and stuff, and just making it a nice, polished, sharp little edge up there. Comes to a nice little pointy point. And what we're talking about when we do apex and burr and everything is, when you're sharpening your knife, you want to get it to a point like that. You have to imagine that the top of this crox is just, you know, like tapers out into a knife point. But if you look in the middle of it, this is our knife point, like in the middle section right here. All right, so this is like a perfect knife point. I'm trying to get the angle just right. if you've got one angle like this, it can still be sharp. It can still be sharp and everything, but as long as the angle is consistent, like this is more like, you know, like an axe or something, 45-degree angle. When you get to the narrow ones anyway, what you're doing is when you're sharpening it, is this edge will roll over. It'll stick over like that upper part just a little bit. This is exaggerated, but it'll stick over. And you'll sharpen this side until this one meets, and then it'll stick over a little bit. And what we're trying to get is that basically we're getting to where there's less and less, and you're like at the apex of whatever angle you've set. You know, you're at the point there. And then to get that super fine, to knock that little edge off, that's where the strop comes in. And the strop will just, it's got a little bit of this green compound that came with it, which is, you know, unabrasive. It's not super abrasive or anything. You just, every once in a while, coat your strop with a little bit of it. And it's a compound that takes off a little bit of metal, but it's more of a polishing, you know, than anything else. It's not really like super coarse and everything. And they make different colors and everything, white and different colors, but I just go with what it came with, just a little chunk of it. But it'll last you a long time. Anyway, you just go through there like that, and you do this, and then you test it again on paper. And if it's giving you the performance you want, then you try again on your hair. And yeah, I took a hair right off. You don't have to do the hair test. But to me, that gives me the difference between paper cutting and hair cutting sharp. I just like to have them hair cutting sharp if I can get it. Just because it's just like, you know, just to do it. I really like a sharp knife. I don't like a dull knife. And that's why I said most of the time, most of my knives in my collection are sharp. Because one of the first things I do when I get a knife is look at it and test its edge. And, I mean, that's really, other than for looks, that's what you want a knife to do, is to cut. And as long as it can cut to whatever you want to cut, most of the time I'm just cutting paper. Paper or cardboard boxes or tape, you know, or paracord or something like that. But the difference between a sharp knife and a dull knife when you go to cut something is really satisfying. That's what I enjoy about this, is the satisfaction of a sharp edge. So that's the fast method. That's the relatively fast method. If you wanted to get more detailed about it and everything, you could do the major blade reprofile, but you're going to spend, like I said, a good 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the steel and the length of the blade, and until you get tired of it. I mean, it'll come out really excellently, you know. You'll have a good blade all the way around, a good edge all the way around, but this is not going to hurt you. The little narrow part in there and everything, this is fairly consistent. Like I said, if you get like a minor dent or something in it, you'll wind up just running it through the coarse, the fine, run it through the strop, and boom, you're back ready to go. So, thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful, and have a nice day.